Now, the group repetition is incredible. It is a pinnacle exercise that can be used in many different ways if it's done in a way that's interactive, that's the exercise. The exercise is to be able to get the group dynamic built. So you can hear a lot of things about repetition not being acting, and you can also learn how to take repetition into your acting. So instead of looking at it as a negative, we can look at repetition as being an incredible tool, which is a precursor to emotional preparation. So you can do group repetitions, and this is how you do it. The group repetition, what it is it is a group of people. You can have anywhere from 3 people to even probably up to about 15, and you get everybody around in a circle. It's better if you do this on chairs. So you have your acting chair set up, and everybody sits on a chair, and you're working to be able to build all sorts of different communication principles and all sorts of different instincts, because as a director you can look at and use this group repetition exercise as a training tool for your actors, and as an actor you can use these tools to be able to sharpen your instinct, to be able to get to know the people that you're actually working with or involved with, to be able to interact with, learn their instincts, and basically be able to work that way. Now, in addition to those things, you can also achieve many different aspects with group repetition, because you can take those pieces of work and you can actually jump right in to the material. So let's say you're working on Shakespeare or whatever, it doesn't matter, probably not Shakespeare, but it might be. And you work hard with whatever the material is, or you've got your Spoon River anthology, or you've got something, and you do a group repetition. And you do a group repetition with people emotionally prepared. Now, these are all advanced techniques, not the simple version, but it's still okay because it's important to know that these exist. So when we understand that repetition is the precursor to emotional preparation, we have to understand that repetition is the connection between whomever you are with. So how you do this group repetition is you have one person start off, you have the group sit around, and the first moment that somebody feels is genuine or deep, you want to be able to start. Now, there's all kinds of ways to start. Sometimes there's more superficial ways, and some that can still be very good for spontaneity. And sometimes there's very deep ways, and that's how, if you were working with a director or you wanted to be able to work on a certain emotional tone, you could even use the group repetition to be able to hit those emotional tones and do a whole series of emotional preparations and then start the group repetition. So these are all very experiential and not as much experiential. So they're experiential, but they're not experimental. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. Experimental. So even though these exercises haven't been used by many people, and the group repetition has been overlooked by so many people in every single area. Some people have been swearing by the repetition because they had such great experiences working with it, and then other people in the acting community in various different ways, justifiably in their own right, people weren't sure how to be able to accept repetition as being part of acting, and they would claim that it's not acting. Well, it isn't and it's not, but at the same time it also is, because you can find impulses that way. So the point of the group repetition is to find group impulses, or it could be. if you set it up correctly. So the technicalities of it is basically set everybody down on chairs around a circle. And you probably have the director or the teacher start it off, or you have everybody sit around, and whenever the strong moment gets felt, then you work off the strong moment. Or you have a preset thing, which I don't exactly recommend, but it might work well. And you could even start using the old word game. When you do the word game sit-down circles, which is where this comes from, a long time ago, where they'd have the word game sit-down circles, and everybody would sit around in a circle, which now it's called the word game changed its name to the repetition exercise. And you've got somebody sitting around, and you can get them started and give them a cue to start with, which would be, you have green hair. And you wait and you try and get whoever. If there's 5 people in the circle, you wait until you've got 2 people starting, or you set it up however you want to when it gets started. And then the first impetus starts with you have green hair. Or you can have it starting in the way that anybody that's silent, everybody gets silent, and whatever strong moment starts. The first strong moment that one person notices in another person, they can start the repetition. And they'd start the repetition with, I see that, whatever it is. It could be, I see that you've got something going on there. Or, I see that you're sad. Or, I don't like what you're wearing. All kinds of things like this that can be very, very, very good, because these are real, genuine impulses. So you want to try and start it with something that's genuine. But if you do have a program that works with something that's artistic, then work with the artistic element. If the instruction in the group repetition is to be able to start the repetition with you have green hair, then start it with you have green hair and see how it goes. Because what you're going to end up with is the repetition starting between 2 people. And you've got 2 people doing the repetition, and then you go and have everybody watching that, the 2 people. So if it's a group of 5 people, you've got 2 people working and you've got 3 people watching. If it's a group of 12 people, then of course you've got 2 people working and you've got 10 people watching. Now, everybody's watching and feeling and participating with what it is that the exchange is going on. If it's you have green hair or whatever the moment is. Now, the instruction, which makes this such a phenomenal exercise, is to be able to pinpoint something in either one of the 2 people. So the 2 people working may not notice their own work, which happens sometimes when you're working with repetition, which is one of the faults of it, because 2 people might not notice. They might not notice how superficial they're being. They may not notice how emotional they're being. It could be on either end of the spectrum. So you look at this and you study them, and you get to be able to study them very closely. You get to study emotion, and you get to be able to study feelings, and you get to be able to study connection, and you get to study openness and all kinds of things. So what you do is you sit down, you keep watching the 2 people that have started the work. Now, if they see a change in each other, then they're going to call the change. Just like normal. If one sees, especially if one sees a deeper change, if one sees a deeper change, they want to call that out and say that they've seen another depth. And the deeper change could be that they feel the person's laughing hysterically because something's caught their funny bone, or something's caught them in a way that gives them outburst of expression. So you call the expression. So other times you can call the emotion. Other times there's a tingling feeling that you're able to make a pinpoint about. And this is how you do the repetition in a free form fashion. Okay, there's many other versions of this where it's much more limited, but in a free form fashion. And as the 2 people go back and forth and have an exchange, if any other ones of the people in the group that's watching and witnessing the repetition see something that's majorly being changed, or missed, majorly changing, but it didn't get called out. So let's say that two people are working and all of a sudden, for some reason, one of the students start thinking about their passed away grandfather. And it just hits them. There is an emotion. Now they're not acting. They're not trying to they're not trying to force. They're not trying to push. They're not trying to do anything, but they're very being present. And they start to think of their passed away grandfather. And now nobody notices that they're working with. The person that they're working with may not notice that as being a change. But somebody else in the circle notices that change. Well, they can go ahead right away and they can say, well, look, you look like there's some sadness there. Or you think that there looks like there's some sort of memory. There looks like there's something going on with you. Because they've noticed the change. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Every single person's watching each other. They're watching the people that are working, at least. So they're watching, this is the point, and everybody's focus will shift to the two new people doing the repetition. Now, this builds up incredible trust within the group. If there's 6 people in the group, there's 6 people in the group. The other 4 keep watching, the new 2 people that are working. And they keep working until either they miss something being called that somebody else picks up, and then they interject, and then they go back and forth. And the point of how incredible this is that it teaches the dynamic of those people, whatever number there are, that they're able to trust each other. They have to listen to each other. They have to participate with each other. They get to really know each other on a personal level. They'll witness each other crying. They'll witness each other laughing. They'll participate with an ebb and flow, both at a feelings level as well as an emotional level. Now, this is an exercise that has value in acting, of course, and it spawns back to the word game group, the group word game. And it's gone missed in so many different stuff. Now, sometimes people will do this with the 3-moment exercise and then it will just happen to carry over. But often that is one thing that does happen. But doing this as an intentional group dynamic focus is excellent. Excellent. And everyone needs to understand they're practicing all of their acting spontaneity, all of their acting creativity without lines and without logic. Now, the purpose of repetition back in New York from its time when it was starting to become popularized by Sanford Meisner is that it was a repetition to be able to drop logic. So the goal is that it was supposed to drop logic and it was supposed to build and create community. That is connection. A community between 2 people, or if it was a three situation, then you could build a communication with 3 people. Or if you're dealing with a group dynamic, you're dealing with 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people, whatever number, up to probably about a dozen should work. Now, how you do this for film is you get your people around and you start to work with certain ideas or certain emotional preparations, and the director will then be able to direct individually emotional preparations with your actual cast. Now, not many people do this. This is a great exercise. And this is how you work professionally in film, which most people don't work this way. Almost nobody. And they need to. And this needs to be a process that actually is achievable. And that's the reason why I wrote the book Emotional Preparation. Because I wanted to be sure that people had and knew that there was many different ways that you could emotionally prepare, including group preparation, which group repetition used with emotional preparation can come up with incredible results. So, and it's based very, very highly in the very skilled and tried and true techniques. So you do this for a film by having, there was these, well, I shouldn't reminisce yet, but it's fantastic. There's so many different things. There's only a few very, very good directors that have dared to work and rely on the techniques this heavily. And they have had some incredible films. And one of them is The Secrets and Lies is a title. And it's not the new one. It's the one that was from 1950s. And that's an excellent film, where you've got the emotional life being directed by the director in the way that I'm actually talking about. And so you start the group repetition. If you're working with for film, I recommend you do it with emotional preparation. And you have everybody separated out, and you have it with emotional preparation, and then you as a director can plan, this is how to be able to get this done, or this is how to be able to wait and see if the dynamic does it itself, and this is how to be able to build up cast dynamics, etc., etc. There's no limit to this. And most people are using this as a more stringent form, which still has an effect of a feeling or a spontaneity, but it can go into the deep, deep emotional roots. So the other way to work with this for film or for a theater production, either one, you carry over the repetition into the acting work. So let me repeat that. You're carrying over the repetition into the acting work, like I mentioned earlier in this video. Basically, the example is that if you have a part of say like you have a speech, and you're working with 6 or 7 different actors, and you've got them around in a circle, and you're doing the work with an actor, and you've got them working, and you've got them emotionally prepared, or they've done their own emotional preparations, and you've worked as a director to be able to do that, or as a teacher, and they've got their group dynamics there, and you're watching it, and then you get to a point where you see that as a teacher that there's something going on in one of the dynamics, emotional dynamics of the actor that you like or want to be able to do. And you go into that element. And all you have to do is tell them, okay, go into your speech now. Now you can do the same thing teaching Spoon River Anthology. So you have everybody with their Spoon River Anthology, you put them into a group repetition. You get them to do emotional preparations themselves, or directed, however you need to. And then, or however you decide it might be best, or to work with. And the point is to be able to have experiences. So it's not experimental, it's experiential. And you get into this element, and then when the time comes where you think that somebody has a speech that's in them emotionally, then you can just tell them, as a teacher, go into your Spoon River Anthology. And they'll stand up from their repetition, group repetition, and they'll start their Spoon River Anthology just telling the group. Now you could rehearse like this for 3 hours, and it would be a very good healthy rehearsal, and it might only last half an hour. And the speech might only last a few minutes. Or it might, however, you could do improvisational elements where you improvise this way to be able to get catch the improvisation of the elements. Or you want to be able to work on a certain emotional element. Now, this is how you actually work professionally with emotion. You have to understand something. This is not some game. This is not something where you can take lightly, or you can take it lightly and you're going to get light results, and that's fine. But you have the options to be able to understand that there's people in acting that work with ideas. And those should really honestly stay with people that are just creatives, cameras, working with people that are let the creatives work with the ideas. The ones that are dealing with the cameras and the camera angles and such. Then there's people that work with feelings. And that's the actors that work with a feeling, and they have an aliveness, and this is exactly what it works. But the acting triangle that I've developed and speaking about has to do with underneath feelings is emotions. So you work with your feelings enough to be able to then have them become emotions. Well, then you can work with your emotions, and you can actually work with the emotions desired and be able to isolate those emotions. This is the way you create all kinds of aspects to acting. You're able to take the group dynamic, build a cast group dynamic. Then you're able to you're able to, in a fun way, in a relaxed way, be able to build emotional continuity, emotional structure. And you might do group repetition. Some people might only do one. And they know they did something for their work, but they're not exactly sure, and they just go on with the rest of the rehearsals. But they might realize that they can do several in every single major speech that they have. They're doing a group repetition with their people, and they're able to do that. Now, I don't even know anybody who's done that process. But I know full well that that's the actual process that should work. Because I know full well that the group repetition works. And if repetition is only being used in a superficial way, then you're not going to be able to achieve this emotional richness with it. And that's just the facts of life and the facts of acting. So, feel free. Go back, listen to this, understand these concepts. Understand that these are the ways that you can work with it. Some of this stuff is based in very, very obscure filming techniques that go back a little while, but some of this isn't. I don't know anybody on Broadway that's done this kind of rehearsals. And this kind of rehearsal would benefit the spontaneity of their work, it could work with their feelings, and it could work with their emotions. But instead, the entire industry is too busy saying that the whole thing about acting is about performing, which is not. And it's not the entire industry. It's the expectation that everybody has that if you go into rehearse, you don't go in to rehearse. You go in and you're in a situation that you're performing. And where we are at as a collective creation level of where we are in the arts right now is we are at the changing point of this becoming an artistic emotional field, with very few people really even realizing that there's a difference between a feeling and an emotion. So work with this, understand it, don't be afraid to explore it, and see for yourself how this affects your work. And understand that the effects, as long as you remain open, should be positive. And you'll be able to find great joy, great sadness, great anger, great releases of emotions that you didn't think that you had in yourself. All of a sudden you start finding these little nuances of work that you didn't think that you even had. And that comes from the group dynamic, and then there's a group that starts to become supportive, and then all of a sudden the projects start to become developed because people are able to have that emotion in the right place, and then that's how you work on a project emotionally. And that's one of the reasons why there's no such thing as an emotional director, but that the industry will develop into being able to have people that have emotional directors or emotional continuity directors. And that will be something in the future that will actually happen. And it's really, it doesn't exist right now. So enjoy this process, be excited about it, be experiential with the process, and if you feel like the video, that would be helpful for some kind of algorithm thing or something. All right, thanks.